Okay. The Rabbi had a simcha in the city, so he asked me to speak a few words. So the Medrash in Midbar Rabbi is like Kam Yisrael Kamoishe, Yisrael Kam Umas Olam Kam Umanu Bil'am. Very interesting and misunderstood Medrash. It says that in the end of the Chumash in Parshas V'Zayis, it says it did not arise among Klal Yisrael anyone like Moshe. So what it says is that among the Jewish people they didn't arise, but by the nations of the world there did arise. And who was this Bil'am? We read it in this week's Parsha, Bil'am. So because from this Medrash, I heard from two ends of the Orthodox spectrum. It's hard to say who's left, who's right, but they're pretty much opposites in many ways, but they come together in this, and they both make the same mistake. I'm not saying this on my own, I'm saying this based on what my Rabbi have taught me, particularly in this issue, and what we see here in the Kedushas Levi, that I heard the chief rabbi of Ireland, Rabbi Rosen, on one end, should be well. On the other end, a controversial figure from Muncie, don't have to mention who it is. They both said, based from this Medrash, that when dealing with trying to make peace, which is a noble thing, people from other religions and so forth, that you're able to say, Chas v'Sholem, that what they have is that their prophets are prophets, Chas v'Sholem. We really, God forbid, you can't say such a thing. But they're saying, and I heard both of them say like this, that because Bil'am was a prophet, so too whoever else you want to mention could also be called a prophet. Chas v'Chalila. It's really fear to say that. Unfortunately, I feel bad to find people otherwise, but they made a grave mistake in this area. And first of all, it doesn't say that Bil'am was a Navi. Nowhere do we have such an idea. The word Navi, prophet, is never used by Bil'am anywhere, not in the Chumash, not in any Divrei Chazal, even though we see that Hashem spoke to him, whatever it means, and there are discussions about what was going on there, but he was not called a Navi. So we can't. So first of all, that's a problem in and of itself.
The donkey spoke.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, that the donkey spoke. I remember there was a younger man who I met once. Unfortunately, he got killed. His father was a Rav in Rosh Hashiva, also got killed. And he wrote that, it was interesting that the Rabbi Yehuda Levi says, Rabbi Yehuda Levi was a Maral. There's different madregas of the world. There's inanimate objects, domain, tzomeach, there's plant life, chai is the animal life, and medamber. Yeah, it's Yehuda Levi in the Kuzari, that's right. And then above that, there is Yisrael, meaning that the difference between a human being and an animal is the way of speaking. Physically, our bodies are the same, but we have the quality of speech, and then Klal Yisrael has that quality of prophecy that the nations of the world don't have. That's not a racist statement in the least, because anyone from any nation can convert to Judaism, and also Avadia, the Navi, one of the prophets in the Tanakh, Obadiah was a ger. He was a convert from Edom. So it's not a racist statement, but it's the fact that that's the difference between a Jew and a non-Jew, is the possibility of prophecy, and the difference between an animal and a human being is speech. So if this younger man in Eretz Yisrael unfortunately was killed, Hashem Yimkam Dama, it was a few years ago. He said that that's the difference, that like if the donkey could talk, so Bil'am could be a Navi, meaning, but still we don't have that lashon of Navi, even though it's a nice word. It's still self kol self. There's no such thing. There's no such terminology of Navi being used. You want to say in English prophet that maybe says doesn't mean Navi. A lot of people that when they're dealing with clergy from other movements of Jewish people, they don't want to use the word rabbi referring to the clergy, but we see Rav Moshe Feinstein, Zecher Tzaddik Levracha, he used the word rabbi. He didn't say harav, he didn't say any Hebrew word. He put Reish, Aleph, Beis, Yud, rabbi. So that you could use. So maybe you want to say prophet in English, but Navi for sure you can. Even prophet, we shouldn't really use that term for talking about not Bil'am and not anyone subsequent of Bil'am, of the false prophets of other religions. It's an interesting thing, though, that Bil'am, we see, he did talk he did hear a message directly from Hashem. That's what the Psukim say. And the false stories that we hear about other in other places, it's very interesting that all those stories, they talk about an angel. They don't generally start a new religion and they say that God spoke directly to the prophet, but they say that an angel came to them. We see that in two very prominent later religions that claim to have a non-Jewish prophet as their founder. Putting that aside, really the Medrash also says that after the story of Bil'am, Moshe Rabbeinu davened that there shouldn't be Hashras Shechina anymore by the other nations. If someone else, now we got the Torah, if someone wants to be a prophet who's not Jewish, they can convert. But without converting, they cannot become a prophet. Nowadays we don't have prophecy, but when Mashiach comes, we'll have that come back. But it's just, though, it's very interesting, though, that they never make that claim. I don't say never, but the vast majority, they're not making a claim of HaKadosh Baruch Hu speaking to them, but rather they claim and angels came to them and gave them some new book and some new teaching, and that's where these religions come from. We can still get along with them, live in peace with them, and sof kol sof we see in Malachi, it says, Mizrach Shemesh Vad Mavoyeh Gadol Shmi Bagoyim, that God, HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself says to the Navi Malachi that his name is great among the nations of the world, even when they're worshipping idols, but they're good people and they don't know any better. Hashem accepts as if they're worshipping Him. So it's not. But we're talking about emes, meaning as far as Hashem's cheshbon, how He measures things. It could be that He has mercy on them because they don't know any better. But they're not prophets. They're not. But there's all these stories. People say that maybe these religions were started by aliens coming from other places. It's more likely that, for something to come, even there is such a thing, and we have in Psukim, and it's in Shiras Devar, there's our Meros, and the Gemara says Meros is a Kochav. But for such a thing, for someone to come from another star galaxy, to come this far, it's a very long trip. It doesn't make much sense. More likely is a Shindal, it's something, a demonic force is trying to trick people. There's the Shevet Musar in his Sefer, it's called Minchas Eliyahu. Rabbi Eliyahu Cohen was the Rav of Izmir, Turkey. He says some fascinating stories that took place by Jewish people. And he's talking about how to have that power of discernment, to understand, to be mavchin, and if you see something on a spiritual realm, what is it? Is it true or is it not? Is it something from Tumah that's trying to fool someone, or is it Taka, something that's Ruach HaKodesh? So he said that, at one point, and he proves from Chazal, that if there's a tzaddik and you know what he looks like, then the Kochos Tumah cannot come in the form of a tzaddik. But the thing is there many tzaddikim we don't know what they look like. So if someone says they saw Eliyahu Navi, or they saw Shimon Yechoy, or even the Baal Shem Tov, the picture of the Baal Shem Tov is not the Baal Shem Tov. It's actually someone else. It was probably someone who wasn't even according to our Masorah. But that picture they attribute to the Baal Shem Tov probably wasn't. So you see this tzura, you don't know what that means, but you see someone it can't be mezuyif. That's what the Minchas Eliyahu brings there. But sof kol sof, he says that he has a Masorah, that the difference between a fire of holiness and a fire of impurity, an Eishel Kedusha and Eishel Tumah, is that something that's Tumah, that's impure, is bright on the outside and dark on the inside. That we see these cults, they look so interesting on the outside, and then you get into them and they're rotten from the core. On the other hand, Torah, you see on the outside, Shor Shagonach is a shor, you read one ox, go to the other ox, this is supposed to be spiritual, these are dry legal books, but you get into it and you get that fire that's in it, from the outside it looks like nothing, It's like, I remember in Yeshiva, one of the Rabbeim, he said it's like drinking beer. When you first taste it, it tastes bitter, but then after a while you get the buzz. The same thing, you start with Torah, it seems so like nothing. When you get into it, you see the fire that's on the inside. It's you also get that buzz from Torah. That was remember Rabbi David Kaplan. He said that in Yerushalayim. But Sof Kol Sof, what are we saying? That so the Minchas Eliyahu, he tells a story that someone came to him claiming that he was being visited by Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, and by Gavriel. And they're telling him things, and they're good things, and they're telling him the future, and it's coming true, but he doesn't know how to handle it, because he says, I'm not worthy to such a level to have such a revelation of such holiness. And you go to most Rabbanim today, they think you're crazy. The Minchas Eliyahu, he knew what to ask. He said, when these guys come to you in your vision, ask them, are you Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the Avos HaOlam? Are you the patriarchs of the world? Or are you just three guys who got together, and one happened to have the name Avraham, one had the name Yitzchak, one had the name Yaakov? It says in the Zohar that they're Shaitan Yehudayin, that they're Jewish demons. And they're demons, they have their own culture, they live and they have their own religions and cultures and cities and families and everything, just like we have. They're living in a different dimension than us. So once he asked this question, those guys, they left him alone because he knew what to ask. And then this Gavriel character was still bothering him. And he said, why'd you tell the Rav? This is supposed to be our secret. And then he gave him a kameya. He got rid of that one too. But it wasn't Gavriel the Malach. It was someone else. Had a name Gavriel, like we give a name Gavriel. So too, someone else, he made a claim that Gavriel came to him. It was just someone with the name Gavriel. It wasn't the Malach Gavriel who came to him and gave him a book and made a new religion. All due respect, have good friends who are in that religion, but we don't believe in it. We can still get along with them and live in peace, but we can't. It's by us. It's not true. So here, this is what we see from. But this was a Jewish guy in Turkey. He had this vision, and the Rav knew what to ask him. He knew that he had that discernment, because we don't know what Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov look like. We don't know what Gavriel look like. Someone comes and says that's our name. It doesn't mean that that's the one, that's the original one. So very interesting. The Kedushas Levi says that what does this mean? This medrash. So even without that we said that Moshe Daven there shouldn't be. Even Bil'am himself wasn't a Navi. The medrash. What does it mean? It doesn't mean that Bil'am was as great as Moshe Rabbeinu. Rather, just the opposite. It says, right? That God made the world one thing, that whatever there is in holiness, there is in impurity. So therefore, that the height of holiness, the height of Kedusha that Moshe Rabbeinu reached, that Moses reached, was the depth and the opposite level of Tumah, of Klipa, that Bil'am reached. That's what it means. Like Kam Yisrael Kamoshe, that Aval Kam B'Masa'olam, that no one came like Moshe, but by the among Like Kam Yisrael Kamoshe, that by the Jews there didn't come, but by the Gentiles there did. Doesn't mean that Bil'am was as great as Moshe Rabbeinu in holiness, but just the opposite. That as great as Moshe Rabbeinu was in holiness, that's how low Bil'am was in Tumah. And he brings a whole thing here. I don't have to get into what it means there, but he proves this, and it's very interesting. It seems that from the beginning of the Parshas, the Kedushas Levi, he brings that what does it mean? Anytime that it says V'yagar Moav Mipnei Ha'am Ma'oid, that Moav was upset because of the Am, the people, very much. The Zohar says anytime it says Am means the Erev Rav, means the non-Jews who converted to Judaism. When they left Egypt, they were slaves from other nations, and many Egyptians, and a whole mixed multitude who came and also converted. That they were very upset, that they were worried that they would get swept up and they would also convert to Judaism, and that's what they were scared of. That's what the Moabites were afraid of. But Sof Kol Sof, we see that he says there all the things that Moshe Rabbeinu with his words was able to turn things around to good, and Bil'am was trying to turn things to bad, but he wasn't able to, because he wasn't able to accomplish it, because he wasn't a Navi. And he wasn't given this level to talk on the level of a Navi. So we see from here that Bil'am ran a strictly non-profit organization.